exactly 4 in Cairo. It's now time for World of Info. Hello everybody and welcome. This is World of Info and we're starting right away with Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at Ain Shams University, Dua Muhammad at the controls, I'm Najla Naguib, and we're with you until 5 o'clock, so stay with us. This is World of Info. Hello everybody and welcome. This is World of Info and today we have our special guests, Ms. Ruth and Stevens-Klitz, Cultural Attachee at the US Embassy in Cairo, Egypt, and Noha Faltas, Entrepreneurship and Innovation Lead at Injaz Masr or Injaz Egypt. Hello and welcome to our program.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Hi, thank you.
It's a great pleasure to have you with us. We'll start straight ahead with Ms. Stevens-Klitz, who is the culture attaché in the United States of Embassy with a colorful career in the Foreign States Service of the United States. She worked in Morocco, Tel Aviv, Armenia, Germany, and Washington with a degree in international relations from Georgetown. She's very well prepared for a great job here in Egypt, I think, which is unfortunately is approaching the end of her tenure here in Egypt, but she has done a lot.
Thank you very much.
So definitely would love to wrap up the great activities that you have been doing for the past 2.5 years in Cairo, because the cultural cooperation between Egypt and the United States is very old. We have strong relations with the United States ever since the 19th century. We had strong communication. We used to have a council who was responsible for the relations, especially in the maritimes and the commercial navy in the 19th century, and United States of America had only even strong ties with the Egyptian army when some of the American officers from the south and from the north, from both armies, have served in Egypt from 1863 onwards till the almost the mid 1870s. So strong cooperation, but the cultural cooperation has been always there, especially by the end of the doctrine of Eisenhower and Kennedy onwards, where the famous picture of Louis Armstrong holding his trumpet with his wife in front of the pyramids, a sort of an immortal picture,
so.
Yes, that everybody, when it sees it, it jumps to his mind that there is definitely has been a great cooperation between both.
And I love that you referenced that photograph, because that has really been the symbol of our musical diplomacy around the world. Louis Armstrong and the generation of great jazzmen who launched our jazz ambassadors programming in the 1950s and 60s, and really believed in the power of music to reach audiences beyond language barriers, beyond cultural or political barriers. We had the great honor of hosting a contemporary jazz group from the United States a couple of years ago. We put together a fantastic concert with them at the Citadel, along with local Egyptian musician Dina Al-Walidi. And the highlight of their visit to Egypt, I cannot exaggerate, was going out to Giza and recreating the picture with themselves, exactly as Louis Armstrong had done it 60 years earlier.
It's a very, very special place. You know, by the way, every dignitary who comes to Egypt, including President Obama and I believe President Trump when he comes, and Mrs. Trump when she came to Egypt, has this picture in her wardrobe, in her office, in a sacred place, is the same photo shoot, which is taking the Sphinx and the pyramids, or the pyramids alone. Definitely this is something that everybody cherish, anyone who visits Egypt. But there are also modes of cooperation, and cultural cooperation includes music, cinema, sports, education, on the level of writers and novelists, and a lot of this. So definitely we have to talk a lot about all these aspects of cooperation.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, but before we go into all these details, we have to talk also to Ms. Noha Faltas, who is working with Ingaz, and she has this joint venture between the Egyptian Ingaz, which is a very well-known NGO, and the United States of America Embassy in the field of cooperation. So tell us, Noha, please, about this, the Ingaz as a society and its two main projects, that there is a strong cooperation between you and the American Embassy. Please.
Sure, thank you so much. So Injaz Egypt was established in 2003 under the Ministry of Social Solidarity, so we're an NGO. We deliver education and training and entrepreneurship, so we work basically in schools and universities and with graduates to help them generate ideas and turn them into real businesses. So we empower the youth in the entrepreneurship field to make them eligible and ready to enter the job market.
You said a very beautiful sentence just before we went on air, which is you start from 5th year graders from the primary school. Tell us about this. I mean, this is very interesting. You're dealing with 10-year-old kids and you're just telling them, start your business. Tell us about it, please.
Yes, exactly. So we believe that entrepreneurship has a mindset. And so we work on the mindset since the students are still in 5th grade. How an entrepreneur think, how do you generate an idea? How do you approach your dreams and try to turn them into a business that it's profitable, that is scalable, that it's needed, how to enter the market. So since they're so young, we try to include this in their way of thinking. So we try to work on their mindsets, we try to give them the resources they need, expose them to the opportunities that are there. So maybe this also encourages them to the future. So when they're growing up, they know that when they grow up, there are a lot of opportunities, that there are a lot of resources, a lot of programs that they can benefit from. We also encourage them to be exposed, so they won't be only in school focusing on their textbooks and exams, but also get exposed to the outer world, like what's out there. When I grow up, what can I work for, or what can I start at my own? How do I budget for it? Everything that's related to their future, we try to embed it in their curriculum since they're like in 5th grade.
So, I mean, this is a very ambitious project. You told me that you are doing this approach, but when they get more serious, when they go to university, you get involved and trying to make their dreams come true. So there are two very important questions that we have to tackle. I mean, the first thing is that, are you approaching the whole scholastic system of Egypt, or unfortunately you're just reaching a very small group? And if so, then how can you expose more schools to this? And the second point, how can you get all this fund for such an ambitious project, which I think that the American entrepreneurship would go in, right?
Yes, we have a variety of programs, and we work across all schools in Egypt. So we work in public schools, we work in private schools, depends on the program that we're delivering. NJ's has good partners and funders and sponsors that help us actually achieve our goals. So we believe that every success has to have good and successful partnerships. So we operate under sponsorships, we have funds, we have a very active board of directors, and that this is what enables us to work across all the schools in Egypt.
So you have reached a big population. Can you tell me a number approximately? In thousands, in hundreds of thousands, or whatever?
Yes, so we approach 50,000 students per year. So this is
from different scholastic years, you mean?
Yes,
from 5th graders to the university.
Yes, exactly.
And so what is the role of the United States Embassy in this, or the cultural cooperation of your embassy?
Well, I would say entrepreneurship is something that we believe in very deeply. We think that innovation and risk-taking, which are a huge part of what entrepreneurship is built on, play a critical role in the success. We've seen the role that it has played in the American economy, and we believe that it has a powerful force for Egypt's economy as well. And that's why we, across the mission, not just from the embassy, but especially with our partners at the U.S. Agency for International Development, have invested so strongly in entrepreneurship here in Egypt, in entrepreneurship training, in coaching, in mentoring, in seed funding and startup funding for entrepreneurs, which of course is a huge part of making sure that they are able to find success. So that's the reasoning behind it. INJAZ, of course, is a fantastic partner, and finds some of their origins in an American organization known as Junior Achievement, which has been doing business training and entrepreneurship training in the United States for decades, and has very successful models for how to train people, how to teach, especially younger people, about entrepreneurship. Topping
some of these programs and give them to INJAZ also to help things going on? Let's
say that the Junior Achievement model has expanded worldwide, and INJAZ here in Egypt is one of the local partners of that network globally. So that's sort of the reasoning behind it. Our focus from the embassy has been on programs where we can bring people together with other people. So bringing American entrepreneurs together with Egyptian entrepreneurs, giving Egyptian entrepreneurs the chance to travel to the United States and see a little bit of what the ecosystem looks like there, make some contacts, potentially find some business partnerships while they're there.
So this is very interesting, because I also knew when we went off air, before we go on air, is that you also have another project, with the American Embassy, which is the Silicon Valley, right?
Yes, we have two programs with the American Embassy. So we have the Startup Egypt program. We serve graduates or graduating seniors who are ready to embark on the journey of entrepreneurship and start their own venture. And we have the Meet Silicon Valley program, where we get Egyptians entrepreneurs to go to Silicon Valley and get exposed to the culture there, and it's like an acceleration program where they can benefit from it and come back and then serve.
How long do they stay over there?
The Meet Silicon Valley is 2 weeks in Silicon Valley, and they get to visit big companies such as Uber, LinkedIn,
Google,
Facebook,
Apple. I mean, they're really visiting our top tech companies.
So how do you choose the candidates? Because the part of the success is choosing the right candidates, right?
Yes. So for the Meet Silicon Valley program, this year we targeted startups that are in operation. So they've been operating for a year, that they've made revenues, that they know their customers, that they've tested the market. And so the program is actually focusing on how to grow your business more, how to take it to another level, how to raise more investment, how to have more partners, and how to scale it to another level. So this year we're having scale-ups, not startups, for this batch. Last year we had actually startups going with their just an idea, and to get mentored on their idea and to make sure that they're on the right track. So every year we try to tweak a little bit the selection criteria to serve them best when we go to Silicon Valley.
So maybe the same group could go another time. You do that?
No. We usually,
yes.
So usually you go once and then you take all the input from there, and then when you come back, you're expected to give back to your community, you're expected to give back to your team.
And at the same time, you already made the connection with the people like there. I mean, when you make a connection with Google or Apple or whatever, the people will answer your emails because they have seen you in person, right?
Actually, that's right. That's the goal of it. A lot of our startups, when they come back, they stay in touch with their mentors in San Francisco. So they still talk, they get mentored on everything they need, and they're still in touch. So that's the outcome of the trip.
So this brings me back to you, Rothaan, to the most important thing, which is the people-to-people diplomacy. Because diplomacy has, of course, the official part where governments work with governments, but also it's the work of embassies to reach out and to make the relations, because this is the whole motto of Foreign State Service, or
absolutely,
which is the cooperation on the people's
on the
level.
people-to-people level. One of the great fathers of American journalism, and also one of the founders of the U.S. Information Service, Edward Murrow, talked about the last 3 feet. He was operating in the days of radio and the early days of television, but he talked about the importance of getting that last 3 feet between a person and the television screen. There's always going to be this distance. You can watch as much television, you can watch anything on YouTube, you can be active on social media. It's not the same as having the direct person-to-person, face-to-face interaction. And he really believed in that, and we still do, and the value of this in terms of promoting better understanding between peoples of two different countries.
So when we talk about the role of Louis Armstrong, we know that a lot of people have followed his footsteps until last year when you gave us the example of the jazz band. But it's not only jazz, because one of the great influencers of the whole world is the American cinema. Whether you like it or not, definitely it's affecting the American soap opera, and the American cinemas and the American movies are forming a lot of the cultural background of the whole world, and of course of the Egyptians. How far is the communication in this field? For example, when we talk about cinema, I think some of the actors do come to the Cairo Festival and things like that, but
they absolutely do, and it's something we've been working in harder and harder. Very much so. So we've been very proud to be expanding our efforts using film diplomacy as a new and expanding area for us to bring people together. And it looks at two different things. It looks at connections between the film industry in Egypt and in the United States. And it looks at professional capacity building for Egyptian filmmakers. So we've sent script writers and directors and producers and increasingly editors and technical staff as well to workshops and residencies in the United States so that they can really refine the craft, refine the stories that they're telling and that they're bringing to Egyptian audiences. Of course, Egypt also has a huge role to play in the world cinema. We recognize the impact that Egyptian film has on audiences across the region, and that's part of the reason we think it's so important for us to be engaged here. We've been proud to partner with local film festivals, bringing American films in, bringing American filmmakers in for the industry development side of the film festivals. So we've partnered with the Guna Film Festival in both of its years. We had a large professional development workshop that happened during the Cairo Industry Days with the film festival that just closed. And we're looking all the time at some of the other film festivals around Egypt for how can we make these connections between the U.S. industry and the Egyptian industry.
I mean, it's very good that you brought the subject of the Egyptian movie industry, because I was just reading a book about the Egyptian cinema, and they say that some authors would call it 111 years old because it started in 1907 with the first film of Abbas Helmi II, the Khedive of Egypt, opening up a project in Alexandria. And the first film was in 1927. That is also quite an old movie. This means that's 91 years old industry, which has a lot of things, and a lot of very well-known actors and directors have had education in the United States, of course, not to mention the least Yusuf Shaheen and even Hassim Fahmi, who was a famous starring. He had his education as a director, then he became a movie star. And a friend of mine, Mahmoud Hamida, also went to on his own account to visit Hollywood and have some courses over there. So it's always important to do brainstorming between the both industries, don't you think so?
It absolutely is. One of the mentors who we brought over for the workshops that we did during Cairo Industry Days happens to be on the board of directors for the Academy of Motion Pictures in the United States. This is the Academy. We talk about the Academy Awards, the Oscars.
The ones that choose the Oscars.
Exactly. And one of the reasons that he came out here and he was very open about it was he wanted to get more direct interaction with Egyptian filmmakers because he is becoming increasingly aware, the Academy at large is becoming increasingly aware of how important a role Egyptian film is playing worldwide. And they want to incorporate that more into the way that they are looking broadly at cinema in the world. It's not just about American cinema, of course.
Yes.
It's really intended to be the craft worldwide, and I thought it was really significant, the significance that they were attaching to Egyptian cinema while they were out here.
I think there's a lot to talk about today because we're going to talk about the fields of cooperation of people to people. So I think after the break we have to talk about sports, education and more cultural cooperation.
Yes, back again, World of Info, and you can call us at 257-89407. With us today, our distinguished guest, Rothan Stevens-Klitz, Cultural Attachee at the Embassy of the U.S. in Egypt, and Noha Feltas, Entrepreneurship and Innovation Lead at Injaz Masr, and Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at Yes, back again, World of Info.
So we'll talk about the sports cooperation. I believe that sports brings a lot of people together, and there has been a rise in the one of the most interesting sports and a cheap one as well, which is running. And we have seen Cairo runners, and we have seen the Tri-Factory people who are encouraging people to take the streets for running. All what you need is a pair of sportswear and a pair of running shoes, and you can be on the run. And it's interesting that this has started in 1965. This mode was in the United States of America, and then it's becoming increasing on the rise, and people are taking on the streets, and people are they say, for example, that when you're running a marathon in the 70s, it was a very elite club, so people would brag about it for the rest of their lives. But nowadays the number of this elite club is increasing by the thousands every year, the people who ran marathons and full marathons and half marathons. So how can this field of sports, whether this was the marathon running or runnings or football, can really bring the people of our two countries together and help to improve the health and of course the mindset of our young sportsmen?
So this is an area where we've been finding some new forms of cooperation. We were very proud in this past fall to bring over a number of top marathoners from the United States. They're with the Boston Running Club, and it's the organization that organizes the Boston Marathon, which is
very prestigious.
Which is extremely prestigious.
Nobody
it's the top marathon in the United States.
In the world, by the way.
Yeah, one of the top ones in the world, for sure. And they were out here working with Alex runners and with Cairo runners, looking at how do you handle the organizational side of the marathon. We're not worried about making sure people can run. People can run everywhere. What we want to make sure is that we're sharing what we've learned from events like the Boston Marathon and the New York City Marathon, sharing that with organizations like Alex Runners and Cairo Runners that are trying to expand their own footprint here, to become international destination marathons, to attract tourists coming in.
And to run safely. Which
is a huge part of it, of course. And so we were really happy to be able to bring the runners in from Boston, and they were so impressed by what they saw, by the way, in Alexandria and here in Cairo. As you said, running is something that doesn't require anything. It requires a pair of shoes. But there's a little bit more to it than that, because it really does require having a safe space to run in. And so we're looking at this as well in the context of not just women's empowerment, but specifically the issue of safe cities for women. This has been an issue that UN Women has been very active in here, in partnership with the Egyptian government, with the National Council of Women, and that our Agency for International Development has been really working to find solutions to some problems that exist for women being able to simply walk around or run around safely in the streets. It's an issue that impacts on women's health. If people are concerned about safety for themselves or for their daughters, they're not going to go outside and simply get the physical exercise that they need. And we're seeing this becoming a health concern for girls and women in Egypt in particular. And one of the reasons that has been cited is simply lack of access to safe places for physical exercise. So running becomes an important way to address some of these issues, because you can run with a group of people. I live in Mahdi, and I love seeing every morning the Mahdi runners out.
Yes. Mahdi athletes.
Exactly.
Yes, I do run with them sometimes.
Fantastic. I'll wave next time if I see you.
Yes, and I believe I've been running also with Cairo runners.
Yes.
And the Mahdi runners, I did twice runs before, but Nagla is more avid runners with the Mahdi runners.
I like more the street runs because it gives you more space, and it's good, and it's more safe to run with groups.
Definitely.
Than to run alone.
And I noticed that it was totally always safe, because the young men are considering that it's part of their responsibility to protect the ladies that are running with them, and giving them the moral support and the psychological support, with no whatsoever harassment. And people got used to see young girls and women running in the streets in these events, whether this was in Mahdi runners or in Cairo runners or in Alex runners. People got used that on Friday mornings you're going to see these people running around the streets, all types of women, whether they are veiled or wearing very sportive clothes or whatever. Nobody is harassing them, and it's considered to be a normal appearance.
And it was good that the last time I ran with Cairo runners in the half marathon, apart from the route and everything, but the issue was that there was security all around the runners, and security was going step by step with all the women and girls, and like a protection, a shield, and that was really good, and you feel safe.
You absolutely do, and this is something, I mean, it's not just our opinion on this, though community running and running clubs and things have also been expanding in the United States. This has been a big focus for the Ministry of Youth and Sports here in Egypt as well. And something that the minister has been really focused on is how do you take what these clubs are already doing and expand it so that more people can enjoy the benefits of this? How do you make it safe?
Yes.
How do you help partner with the running organizations so that they can get more people out running?
Yes, I feel he's doing a good job, Mr. Ansher Sobhi. And also we have to take us to a very important aspect, which is football. Football is the most popular, I mean, not American football, but the normal soccer, as they call
what
it.
Everyone else in the world calls football, yes.
Yes, this is very popular game in Egypt, but the United States has taken it to a further step. It's not, it's popular in the United States, but the American team, unfortunately, for example, missed the World Cup this year. We did. You didn't miss it, but you missed it.
No, we had a lot of fun cheering for Egypt at home, though, I will tell you.
Yes, it appeared a very strange grudge between us. But the point is, your football ladies or the soccer ladies in the United States of America are doing a magnificent job. They're always competing for the first place. If they don't get a gold medal, it will be only the silver. They will not even take a bronze. So there is, you told me before we went on air that there is a field of cooperation, especially that the World Cup of ladies is going to happen, and we see the progress. 2 weeks ago there was the golden shoe that has been presented for the first time, not only for the strong chauvinist males of the game, but also to a beautiful French young lady, blonde, who was so beautiful, and she was presented the best player of the world. So let's talk about football.
Let's
and
talk
the
about football. Yeah.
Yes.
So this is something that we've been really excited to be able to share, using the Women's World Cup as an opportunity to, we're very proud of our national team, and it's a great way to showcase women's engagement in sports, and women's football in particular. This year we're looking forward to bringing a group out here to Egypt to look at training, to look at coaching for girls, and we'll be partnering with a couple of different football clubs around Cairo, and hopefully bringing in some coaches from outside of Cairo as well. To look at coaching and training techniques, to look at player recruitment and development at all different levels, from the club level to the elite academy level, universities in the United States, which for us is the next step up, and into the selection process for the national teams. And this is something where we're really excited to be working closely with the Ministry of Youth and Sports and with the Egyptian Football Federation. I don't have more details on who exactly will be coming out, but we're very much looking forward to expanding our cooperation in this field later this year.
And I think there's a prospect, because I notice nowadays, even our clubs, that girls are interested in football, and they're becoming more professional. They're trying to pass it. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you can hardly see a girl passing a ball. They would play handball, they would play basketball, but they will not get involved in football. So I believe it's becoming more popular with the media, with the internet and things like that, right?
It is, and it's something that we're really excited to be able to share. It's also a question for me, and I'll be interested to learn more about women's football in Egypt. In the United States, though, we see as many girls as boys out on the field when they're quite small. By the time you get to high school and university level, you see far more men playing football than you see women.
You're talking about American football?
In the United States. No, soccer.
Soccer,
yes, with football. And so I'm curious to see how we can encourage girls, not just in Egypt, in the United States too. This is a problem for us.
But how come the United States is, in spite of the lower population of girls that are playing, still having very high ranking in the World Cup?
We play very hard.
No, I thought that because, for example, in basketball, everybody is playing, whether these are in the girls or the boys, and that's why you have a very strong base from which you choose the best of the best to represent the United States in the Olympics or in the World Cup or whatever. So you're saying that you're having a smaller base in football.
It's kids who are interested continue in the sport, and I think that's the same here in Egypt as well. I mean, everyone plays as a kid because they want to try it out. Their parents might want them to try it. There's a lot of different reasons why people get involved. But if you're going to stay in it, it's because you're passionate about the sport.
Yes.
And so the women that we see going on to elite academy levels, to university levels in the United States, these are people who are absolutely committed and dedicated to the sport, and they're working every bit as hard as the men. And I've been really proud to see the pay equity issue addressed for the women's national team as well, finally.
Really?
Yes.
So there's an equity.
Yes.
This is, in the United States of America, some CEOs are not having equity up till now.
This is for the national team,
Yes,
but they pointed out.
This is very nice to hear.
They pointed out correctly that their winning ratios are far better than their male counterparts, and perhaps it would be fair for them to be paid equally.
That's very nice. This is very nice and encouraging to know. Now I want to talk to you on a further important level, which I had after graduating from the university, and I was looking to it with great admiration, which is what we used to call in the field of education the Peace Fellowship. You remember this program?
Yes,
there was
of course.
a program called the Peace Fellowship. A lot of my colleagues went to the United States for a year or two, where they had either research done or a PhD or a work for a master's degree or whatever, and they came up with very positive feedback from the United States. They lived the life of scholars. They enjoyed their times there. They brought on a lot of brainstorming with them back. And I'm very much amazed that this program is not very much active as it used to be. I mean, everybody who applied for a peace fellowship in the late 80s and the early 90s simply got it. So how come this field of cooperation is not going on as it used to be in the late 80s and early 90s?
There's been a shift in some of the different types of programs that we're funding, and that has happened from generation to generation, sometimes even from administration to administration within the American government. Exchange programs are an important way to bring people together, but the focus on which types of people or what sorts of experiences may change a little bit depending on where our policy priorities lie. What has remained constant is our commitment to bringing people together. And so although the Peace Fellowship is something that we no longer fund, we have a lot of opportunities for Egyptians to find funding for studies in the United States through the Fulbright Commission here in Egypt, through programs that we administer directly by the embassy, through scholarships that are funded by the U.S. Agency for International Development, through private scholarships. Increasingly, Egyptians are finding funding to go study in the United States. And we have an academic advisor who helps to coach Egyptians who are interested in studying in the U.S. as undergraduates or as graduates, help them navigate the application process to the United States, as well as finding funding if they're accepted into American universities, because that can be a huge obstacle, not just for Egyptians, but for Americans too, by the way. We understand the financial challenge of going to an American university. So no, we have a lot of different opportunities for Egyptians to study in the United States.
So the name has changed, but still the projects are coming, because I will tell you an important information that I once told to the head of the Fulbright Society Association here, is that my uncle, my late uncle, had one of the first Fulbright fellowships and scholarships in the United States in 1948 or 47.
Oh my goodness, that would have been right in the beginning of it.
Yes, and he traveled to the United States and to have his master's and PhD degree in agriculture. He was a member of the staff in Cairo University. So this is interesting to know. I mean, so this how far afield this affects the life of human beings, definitely.
And down through generations and across families. It really has a tremendous effect. This year we're celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Fulbright program here in Egypt.
This is my uncle's
Exactly. So he really would have been in the very first generation.
Yes.
And the different fields that Egyptians have represented in the United States, and by the way, we are now hosting American Fulbrighters back here in Egypt as well, which has been wonderful to see resume. It presents such a breadth of different cultural experiences, and the scope is a lot broader here than it is in many other countries. So it ranges from things like agriculture and some of the more technical fields to things like the arts. We've had musicians who've had Fulbrights in the United States. We've had people across a number of different artistic fields.
So it's definitely great. Now, after the break, we have to talk about further cultural cooperation. I believe you have here a big library. And tell us about this, and it's a branch of the Congress Library here with a gentleman who's the director of it. So we want to talk about the cooperation in the fields of cultural cooperation, in the words of novelists, writers, and how to support the ambitious people who are working in this field.
Sounds great.
So back again, word of info, and you can call us at 2578-9407. So back again, word of info, and we have Ms. Rothan Stevens-Klitz, cultural attaché at the Embassy of the U.S. in Egypt, and Ms. Feltas, entrepreneurship and innovation lead at Injaz Egypt.
So before we go back to Ingaz, which I think we have to finish the program with it, take the chance that Noha Feltas is with us, we talk about the American Cultural Center and the library in particular, because I find that it has been there for quite a long time, and it has had different varieties of books, and definitely it introduced the Egyptian reader to a lot of aspects of books. Tell us, how can people apply for a membership, how far the books are new or old, and how types of functions that you present and festivals inside this beautiful library.
Absolutely. Our cultural center is really one of the crown jewels for our cultural centers across the region. The center here in Cairo is so active. They are hosting programming every day of the week that we are open. And you can read about their schedule or follow them through the embassy's Facebook page. So please look us up if you aren't already following us.
So it's only the Facebook of U.S. Embassy. You don't have one for the culture program.
Yes, but everything is linked together. Also on the Embassy's webpage, you can find the schedule. The monthly schedule is posted for activities at the Cultural Center. And I would mention as well that it's not just the center, which is at the Embassy in Garden City. We have what we call an American Corner, so almost like a small branch at the Mahdi Public Library that's down in Mahdi. So we're active in both locations, and we're doing programming every day. You know, libraries have evolved a lot over the last 20 or 30 years as where people are looking for information has changed. It's not necessarily that the first place you look if you're trying to find something is in a book. You might look online, you might look to different media. And so libraries in the United States, our public libraries, which are such an important part of our educational system, have expanded their scope as well. They're doing cultural presentations, they're doing workshops and training and all sorts of different activities to bring people into the library, bring them together, and make sure that they're finding the information that they need. And we do the same at the Cultural Center. So you will find courses on everything from virtual reality and the makerspace, to soft skills training, to English language conversation circles. You will find presentations of American film. You will find presentations of different aspects of American culture, as well, of course, as a very well curated collection of American books.
So what types of books do you have?
We have all different things. We have scientific texts, we have novels and literature, all sorts of different things, and a very knowledgeable and well-trained reference staff who can help you find whatever it might be. So
it's a private membership? People apply for a membership? Or
people apply for a membership. It is free, but you do need to apply. So all of the information on how to do that is on the Embassy's website, and I would encourage you to please take a look. They do fantastic programming down there.
And people can borrow some books and return them or something?
Yes, they can. Yes, they can. Yes, so it is a lending library, and we have very few of those left around the world, but I'm proud of the one here in Cairo.
Yes, this makes us proud as well. I think we can talk forever about the cultural aspects of cooperation between Egypt and the United States, a friendly relation that has been going on for almost 2 centuries. Right?
Very much so.
Yes.
And it's an active cooperation in both directions. We're proud of this.
Yes. And definitely we have to go back to Ms. Noha Faltas to talk about INGAZ, because the startup project is still going on and is still open for people to join, and still have some vacancies for people to apply to have an hand-on entrepreneurship visits to the United States of America. Could you tell us about that now, please?
Yes, sure. So the Startup Egypt program is now up and running. The applications are open. So I'm encouraging the Egyptian youth who have a business idea and they want to turn it into a real operating startup. We're here to help you. So the applications are up and running on our website and on our Facebook page. If you type www.injaz-egypt.org, you can easily find access to the application also on our Facebook page. We encourage Egyptians who have an idea and they still want to go and test the market. They want to know if their idea is working or not. If you want to take trainings, workshops, mentorships, coaching, even international exposure and funding, we offer all of these services to our startups. And the most interesting thing is that we take Egyptian youth from an early stage. So if you just have an idea, I encourage you to apply, because you don't have something that's already solid on ground. We actually want people with an early stage idea so we can help you turn it into a real startup.
So INGAZ is reachable, right?
Yes. So we're very active on Facebook. We're actually very active on social media. The emails that on the website, we respond to emails very quickly. So we actually here to serve the Egyptian youth. So we are here to help them, to answer their questions, their inquiries, everything.
How long have you been here as an NGO? Since when you've been founded?
So INJAZ started operating in 2003, and the startup program started in 2011, and it was like the right time during the revolution, with all the young people coming out with their ideas, or trying to solve problems by building their startups, by thinking of creative and innovative ways to make life better and easier and accessible to everyone. So we have been operating since 2003, and startup has been operating since 2011.
So people can just go in, fetch for INGAZ, and reach out, and maybe you can be a lucky one to go and have an entrepreneurship experience in the United States at hand, right?
Yes.
So before we leave, we started with music. and we have to finish with music.
Okay.
Because I think that the idea of music has been, since we started with Louis Armstrong, I've noticed that when I visit the opera on the classical orchestra, we find a lot of these concerts have been subsidized or funded by the American embassy, especially when they bring a conductor, a distinguished conductor. Last year there was a very distinguished American lady conductor who came and conducted Cairo Symphony Orchestra, and even famous players from all over the classical orchestras. So is this going on as a sort of an activity from part of under your patronage?
Yes, it is, and we think that it's tremendously important. First, the work that is being done out of the Opera House to keep Cairo really on the map as a destination for the arts is absolutely critical.
Yes.
I think it's important to long-term economic health in Egypt. I think it's important for a lot of things. And of course, we're proud to be able to partner with them to present American culture in the form of symphonic music, in the form of all sorts of different things out of the Opera House. We think it's great for American conductors and musicians to have the opportunity to come here to Egypt so that they can see the caliber of the musicians who are playing here, who are training here. And we're always very happy to be able to share American content. We sponsored the opening concert for the symphony this year, which had a program that was based on yes, exactly.
On the great. I love that
that's
very
wonderful.
Much.
I'm glad you were
we
there.
We attended that, and
I'm
really enjoyed it very much.
Thank you. I'm glad. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to share this other aspect of American culture with the audience here in Egypt.
And I think also the nice thing which is going into the small theater, which is the Metropolitan Opera, that is live from New York, that comes to the small theater. This is nice.
Well, I mean, I started off talking about the last 3 feet and how there's just no substitute for face-to-face communication. Mm-hmm. Then again, we are living in a digital world right now.
Yes.
And so the opportunities that are presented by being able to simulcast an opera or simulcast a speech or an event from anywhere in the world, you can participate from right at home. But it's nice to go to the Opera House and do that with an audience around you, isn't it?
Yes, people feel like it. I mean, I was just discussing with the lady down yesterday how she feels like as if she's in the Metropolitan taking the best seats.
That's fantastic. Right? That's fantastic. That means they're doing it right.
Yes, exactly. I think we talked a lot about things of cultural affairs, but still there is more things to talk. So would you please kindly promise us to come again to talk about more about the cultural cooperation between Egypt and the US?
It would absolutely be my honor. Thank you so much for having me today.
It's a great honor, and really thank Noha for coming and sharing with us with Ingaz. I hope our listeners would take the chance to listen up and to get involved with Ingaz and to have more chances for entrepreneurship as young entrepreneurs in Egypt.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And by this we come to the end of World of Info. With us today was Rothan Stevens-Klitz, Cultural Attachee at the Embassy of the US in Egypt, and Ms Feltes, Entrepreneurship and Innovation Lead at Ingaz Egypt. With us Dr. Amr Mabrouk, Professor of Plastic Surgery at Ain Shams University. Dua Muhammad was at the controls. I'm Najla Naguib. See you next Thursday, same time, same station, FM 95.4.